The next question that came in, what are some of the structural and operational differences between a nonprofit and a typical commercial entity? And Deborah, I know you've got experience with both commercial entities and nonprofits. What are your thoughts about the structural and operational differences? I know a lot of people are starting new entities.
Yes.
Like, which one should I form?
Right.
Long-term implications, what's it like?
Absolutely. So I'll just start by saying, one of the myths that comes from the actual name nonprofit is that, the entity should always end up at if they're budgeting or whatever, it should always be zero, which, when I first entered the nonprofit world, that was, my clients and I would just be like, wait, it has to go to zero. But I'm like, no, that doesn't make sense. That's impossible. So that's one of the myths that we can, throw out the window, that, because a lot of nonprofits, they have, sort of the goods that they sell, as long as it doesn't mess with the, what is that, the UBIT?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So
as long as their margins aren't so slim that UBIT's actually going to have it as a loss.
Right, that you actually still remain as, you can't be a gazillionaire, in a nonprofit, and but anywho, so that's one. Another one is just in terms of like the structure. Like, for instance, in a commercial entity, you usually have the highest position as a president, and that person is a legal officer. Nonprofit, the highest position is usually executive director, ED, and they're not necessarily a legal officer, and they cannot in some states, they cannot legally bind the organization or have authority to sign contracts or agreements. In New York, they pretty much have that authority. Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, but at least in the nonprofits I've been at, they've been able to, with the board's, authority or whatever, they've been able to, enter into contracts, etc. Because how can a nonprofit function, like a nice, well-oiled machine if you restrict the executive director's, duties and things of that nature. Yeah, and
my
also,
experience coincides with yours in that regard. When an executive director signs a contract with Tier 1 services, it's significant.
Right.
And so, but they have signing authority, but because it's significant, they often go to the finance committee or perhaps the entire board. When you have a governing board and not a working board, they shouldn't be consulted for every little,
Correct.
Should we switch over to jumbo paper clips, or should we?
Pencils or pens, quick.
Exactly. But for the major decisions, a lot of executive directors like to have the board's support, but it's still their signature on the contract.
Right, exactly. And that's pretty much, that's not all of it. That's just a snippet.
Yes.
And then just in general, the bylaw in a nonprofit, the bylaws definitely define the organization as to, the amount of officers they have, and, just a lot of the governing items that a nonprofit goes through.
I think a lot of people who want to form nonprofits don't realize the extent of the bylaws.
Yes. The structure and everything is extremely important. It's obviously the mission and the passion and all that. But you gotta shuffle some papers.
Indeed. And you also bring up a really good point about the board, because I was talking to an entrepreneur a month or two ago, who is really on fire to begin a new initiative to help a particular community that she cares a lot about and has the knowledge to help.
Yes.
And has the leadership skills to bring other people into her vision and help.
Right.
And I know her well enough, though, to know how she would react when I told her about a board, because she hasn't been involved in nonprofits before. She's very business savvy on the commercial side. So I worded it this way. So the first thing that you do when you form a nonprofit is go out and find 3 bosses. They're called your board of directors.
That is perfect.
I said, how are you going to feel about that? She's like, I don't want 3 bosses.
Right. And that's the minimum.
Right. Yes, it is.
That's the bare minimum.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with having bosses, but if you don't want to have bosses, you might need to reconsider whether the nonprofit structure.
That's a whole different concept and skill set, rather, how to manage your board as a nonprofit. You know, it's a beautiful science.
Isn't that the truth? It's a skill set. I mean, managing a board is a different skill set.
That's a whole, it is.
Great. I'm so glad that this question was asked. So thanks for bringing that in, Deborah.
Yes, no problem.